Her and I are going to do this together. This is actually um, a class that she put together. I don't know if how many of you know Valerie. So Valerie is part of the CB group. We've had them in to do courses before, top 20% meetings before. Um, hey Val.
Hi.
Hey, see
Sorry
you.
I was late.
That's okay. We never run these things at 12. These Zooms. You always go 12:05.
I'm early for a realtor.
I know. I'm actually impressed. Um, so I was just giving them a brief intro on you for anyone who doesn't know you yet, but you could do a better job than I can.
Sure. So I've been a realtor for almost 24 years. Originally licensed in Atlanta, Georgia. I am part of the CB group. We've been a team since 2013. In the past 4 years, we were #1 in the Southeast region twice. And my role has evolved. I started as a buyer agent, became lead buyer specialist, grew into director of sales, and now I'm still director of sales and expansion into Philadelphia. My role as a leader and as director of sales was to and is to help grow the team, help grow the agents individually as agents. In some cases, doubled their production, in some cases, tripled their production. And really what I want for my agents and what I want for myself is for all of us to work smarter and not harder, to be way more efficient. And this is a class that I taught in my market center last year about doing just that. And some of the tools that we use on our team for that are the 30-60-90, which Brandon's going to talk about. And I use the 411 with our agents weekly. And I use one for myself also.
Yeah, I think bold pivot is starting today. Obviously, we're in an interesting time for real estate, but there's no better time than like this exact moment, if you haven't already, to dive into how you can become more productive coming out of this. Before we start, I was on a team leader mastermind with Gary Keller last week. I know Gaurav touched on a lot of this stuff yesterday for his OP ones, but the biggest things that stood out to me, amongst a lot, was we're in a crisis, right? Gary was very clear, we're in a crisis. But crises like this are all about exposure, right? They expose your processes, they expose your abilities, they expose your financial well-being, they expose all these different things. So there's no better time than right now to really dive into what the processes are. Because if you have the process in place, hopefully, right, as long as the your skill set's there as well, you will come out of this with business. That is the intention. That's the goal, and hopefully, you utilize a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, moving forward too. So not just while there's a global pandemic, but on like an average Monday at the same time, right? So, Valerie put this. I couldn't get in a slide form, so I'll run through the PDF. I already have it up, Val. So
Oh, you do? Okay, because
yep.
I took a little longer so I could make my second screen have it up. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That's fine.
I have it up but before we dive into that, I do just want to touch on, and I'll do a screen share. And I think I have this set up to where you won't get OCD from all the tabs I have open.
And I do want this to be interactive also. I always find that, when you ask questions and there's no question is silly, every question leads to a conversation. So please ask questions. I'm curious if anyone has read The One Thing. And if you have, can you just kind of say, I can only see Brandon right now. I see, who's that? Is that Deidre?
That's Deidre
Hi.
down there.
Anyone else besides the three of us who's read The One Thing? No. Well, I recommend you do that. It's a really easy read. It's a great book. It talks a lot. It goes into very detailed explanations about what we're going to talk about. Um, um, there's also a podcast that I've found to be probably the only podcast I listen to on a regular basis. And the cool thing about the one thing is that while it was written for real estate agents, it was written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. It's probably in the top 10 of business books all across the world and across any industry. It's funny because my brother's 10 years older than me, and he's been working for Intel for a bazillion years. And we always share books with each other. He first got me, when I first started as a realtor, he got me into Zig Ziglar. And the last time he visited me, he always carries his copy of The One Thing with him. So it's not just for realtors, it's for everyone. But the principles that they teach us are really great for battling any goal that you want to accomplish, whether it's reaching your sales goals for the year or running a marathon. Anything that you want to do and you don't know how to get started at, this is a great place to start.
Yeah, and I want to just touch on, before we dive into the Form 1 and other productivity tools and the great presentation that Val had. One thing that our leadership team has been doing, and if you look at any of these like crazy huge teams across the country in multiple different industries, one thing they're doing is they're really evaluating their 30, 60, 90-day plans. Now, I'm going to send this out to everyone. There's also a form for capping agents as well, so I'll send that out to the capping agents on here. But basically, even it's not necessarily like, am I going to be employed or not employed, or on a team or not on a team, or whatever that is in 30, 60, 90 days. It's just time to reevaluate your process and come out of this, essentially crisis with a better system in place over the next 90 days. So if you haven't already done a 30, 60, 90 day for yourself, it's a good time to start one. But if you have, and you have things on there like host open houses, or host 4 open houses a weekend, or attend 2 networking groups or networking events a month. Like if you have those type of things on there, realistically, you're probably not going to be able to do them for quite some time. Right? Would you agree, Val?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, especially in a time like this, we need to get back to basics. And
Yep.
this is a really great way of getting you there. And I think we all kind of go through this, especially in a time of uncertainty, but we all have a day where we're like, I just don't know what to do. I know I need to make these calls, but I don't even know where to start or how to start. And so then like overwhelm sets in, and so I think going back to a checklist and going back to something that you can cross off and feel accomplishment by crossing something off is a perfect place to start in times, right now, anytime really.
Yep. I agree. 100%.
Well, and it's interesting too, because what I like about your 30, 60, 90, Branden, is that I think it's something that, gosh, I mean, you could use this on a monthly basis. Like you could start a new cycle every 3 months of this is what I need to do, and think about how productive you would be if you did that. If you're ever wondering, just go back to that.
Yeah, I think it'd be huge.
It's funny because when we were talking about this, I use a 30, 60, 90 as an onboarding tool for our agents, and I created the 30, 60, 90. So it looks very different than this one, but you could create your own. Ours includes books, like they have to read a book every 30 days in the first 90 days. And The One Thing is one of those books. So I don't know why we don't use this more often, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I don't either. And it's not just like teams or not a team. Like if you're an individual agent, like there's no reason why you shouldn't be using this for yourself. And if you need an accountability partner to just help you stay on top of it, feel free to reach out to me or any other agent with us. That 30, 60, 90 is from KW. So
It's
that's like
the
on,
company designed. Yeah.
yep, that's like a really, really good one. I do agree that if they're, for a team, it is good to make your own based on what your team's goals are and how your team operates. But I'm going to send that out to everyone regardless. I
I'm happy to
stop.
share ours as well. I have one for buyer agents and for listing agents.
Yeah, I stopped sharing for a second just so I can figure out how to get notifications off. But why don't you lead us into the 4-on-1, and I'll bring that up in just a second.
Sure. So we are going to be talking about, to me, the 411. Does everyone know what it is? It actually is a form and it does exist. Anyone else familiar with it? Branden, do you have one readily available? Because I can text it to you really quick.
I don't have a blank one readily available.
Here, I'll send you one right now. And my apologies, the one that first came up when I did a search is one from, it still has 20, shit, where did it go? It has the 2019 number or year on it. I don't know why. It should be the 2021, but nonetheless, here you go, so he can share it.
All right. I'll wait for that to come through. In the meantime, I figured it out.
Good.
So I'll share my screen again, and we'll go back to the PowerPoint or the slides that you sent me, and we'll roll from there.
Okay.
Okay, you can see those, right?
Yep.
Cool.
So this is really about utilizing this productivity form called a 411. And what I realized when I was doing the research for this class was that it actually all starts with your time and your schedule. So we're going to be talking a little bit about time blocking today and how to utilize the 411 so that you can get very clear about what your priorities are, and also so that you can work on the 20% that really drives your business. Because what happens to us as realtors is we start out really well and we start out working on our 20%, and then shit happens and the real estate world starts to blow up and we get, this email and that email. We've got to put this fire out and that fire out. And then all of a sudden we're working on the 80% that we shouldn't be focused on, right? It needs to get done. So my goal is that with these tools, you'll be able to prioritize your priorities. Yes, that email needs to be written and that fire needs to be put out. However, if you don't do your 20% first every day, then you could be riding the realtor roller coaster, which is up and down, and no one wants that.
I think that the other really important thing is that 20% is what's going to make you your money, right? So A, it's going to make you productive, but B, this is where the bulk of your income is going to come from in real estate, is doing that 20%.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we don't want to ride that roller coaster, and I saw this time and time again with a lot of our agents where they would be super busy. They'd have, 5, 6 active buyers in the car. They'd be writing 5 offers. They'd be getting 5 things under contract. They'd be having 5 closings. And then it would just drop off and it'd be radio silent because they get so busy with, they think they get so busy. And this happens to all of us. So I'm not preaching. I've been there. I'm just as guilty. We think we get so busy with what we need to be doing. We forget that our basics are what builds our business. And those are the 20%, like you were talking about, the rocks.
Yep.
So we can go to the next slide. And this, I think, is a really great thing to keep reminding yourself and keep talking to yourself about and keep asking yourself. And there's a good, in the One Thing podcast, one of the episodes is about Jeff Woods when he's talking with Gary Keller about his priorities for the year, and they break it down to his number one priority. And so until your number one priority is done, everything else you do is a distraction. And I do want people to answer this. So chime in if you can. There are 5 things that Gary Keller says as agents, there are 5 things in our job description. Does anyone care to guess what those 5 things are?
Lead generate.
Lead generate is one. That's I would say that's the number one priority in your job description. Absolutely. What's another one? The second one, I'll give you a hint. When you lead generate, sometimes you have to do something to turn that into a buyer or a seller. What would you have to do with
Right,
those?
it's gonna be conversion.
It's not conversion.
Follow up.
Yes, whoever said follow up, gold star. So lead generate, lead follow up. Okay, those are 2 separate things, not one. And we've got 3 more. I'll give you another hint. When you lead generate and lead follow up, it normally results in an belly to belly, face to face, an appointment. So our role is to lead generate, lead follow up, go on appointments, negotiate contracts. And the 5th one people never get. Our 5th description of our job is to role play and practice. Practice scripts and to role play. That is what Gary Keller says is our job description. So if you're ever curious, and so you could start your 30, 60, 90, build a 30, 60, 90 around that. Lead generate, lead follow up, go on appointments, negotiate contracts, and script and role play.
That 5th one is forgotten so often.
Always forgotten. Always forgotten. It's kind of, think of it as an athlete that has to go through like a spring training or, a summer training before the fall football season. You've got to practice and you've got to sharpen and hone those skills. So when we're talking about scheduling, keep these things in mind because we will have to make room for them. So we're going to talk first about time blocking. Does anyone follow a schedule?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Anyone use a date book or like old school, write it down, or digital?
Google Calendar.
Google Calendar. Yep. Love it. So what's the best schedule to use? It's kind of like, what's the best place to keep your database, right? The one you'll actually use.
Right.
Yeah. So anybody time blocking right now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So when we're time blocking, we're going to set specific time aside for the things that matter most so that you can gain clarity on your priorities and make sure that your actions are matching your priorities. And one of the best ways to do that is with the 411. So let's show the 411 real quick. And we can, do you think I could send this to a chat? Oh yeah, look, you can
text the chat.
Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, so why don't you just send it and then I will pull it up.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, so this is the tool that we're going to utilize in order to create our 411.
Can you see the 411 on my screen?
No.
Oh, okay. Cool. That actually works. So if everybody could pull up that 4-in-1, that would be ideal, because what I was able to do is just share the actual PowerPoint, so you won't see anything else that I get behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. So the 411, obviously, it's kind of a play on the term. What is the 411? Well, it's the relevant information or the truth. And the way that we've adapted it as a company is that it is 4 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year. And this is going to help you get clarity on your priorities again. Just pause for a second because I felt like it might be easy to give you an idea of what my 411 looks like. And this is one from a couple of months ago, but I'll share my screen when it comes to that. The one thing you want to think about when you're creating your 411, this is your must-do list. I must do these things. This is not a to-do list. So a lot of people confuse it with that, but don't use this as a to-do list. It's your must-do. This is where you're going to put that 20% of the activities that are going to drive your business into this 411, and you're going to divide it into, take your goal that is your yearly goal and divide it into monthly goals and weekly goals. So that's 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. That's what it stands for. Does anyone have a question surrounding how to break these down? No, we're good? No one? Okay.
So one thing that I will say, you should try and make the yearly annual goal is going to be a broader goal, right? Based on what it is you want to accomplish that year. I actually, when I do the 4-in-1 and what I've been sending out to more people, it includes not just business, but also personal, finance, and like job related goals. So that way it's like really comprehensive of everything you want to accomplish in a year. But as you break it down, you need to get really, really specific. So on the surface level, you take the annual goal, divide it by 4, and then divide it by 4 again, because you're going to have 4 weeks in a month. But don't just divide it and say, okay, this week I want to do X. You should really be you should be tracking your business and know enough about your business to know if you do 60% of your production in months, April through July, you should have that reflect accordingly in your 4-in-1. And if you know that you're not going to have as crazy of a December, because typically your business doesn't flow that way, again, make sure it just reflects. Don't just divide your annual goal into month, into week, and create what you're going to be doing in each time, because throughout the year, your tasks might even be different. There's going to be different things that you're going to be accomplishing. So broad with the main goal, a little bit more specific when you divide it out on a monthly basis, and then super specific when you divide it out on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the things about when we talk a little bit more specific about time blocking is that you've got to set time aside to business plan. And business planning is not just done in the fall for the new year. You have to business plan on a weekly basis and a monthly basis. So one of the activities would be, if you know that you've got 3 goals for the year that you want to hit, so every month there will be activities that you are doing that will propel you further towards hitting those goals, right? And so like Branden said, you don't just divide this into 12 and then divide it into 4 weeks. You actually want to, this is an active living thing. You want to actually look at it and make changes to it on a weekly basis. And the way I don't know, I'm kind of old school, and I also believe that when there's power in writing things out, and putting pen to paper, and it, in my opinion, helps to influence manifestation also. So mine is actually like, I write mine out every week in pen and paper. And this becomes kind of the bookmark to my date book. And I'm seeing it constantly every day. You know, and some weeks, like he said, some weeks will be different than others. Some months will be different than others. I have found that with mine, there is something that there's a constant theme that doesn't change. And those are the conversations that I want to have around real estate on a weekly basis. That is a constant that, you know, I may have additional goals that I want to accomplish for that week. And yet that is the one thing that doesn't change for me. And to Brandon's point also, when you're creating your 411, I do want to put, and you'll see in the form, if you've got it pulled up, it has the business goals on one side, and then it has your personal goals on the right-hand side. So you do want to be cognizant of, what you want to accomplish personally also for the year. Corey has a question. Do you only focus on your 411, or do you write out your daily to-do list as well?
So
I do both. And one of the things, Jeff Woods, who is he's the vice president of the One Thing, and he leads the One Thing podcast. When he's talked about his 411, the front is his must-do list, and then on the back, he has his to-do list. And that's how he differentiates it. You know, so I think, Corey, for you, however you want to keep your running to-do list, I tend to put a lot of, I like Post-it notes, and then I just get rid of the Post-it note when I'm done with it. So I typically have a lot of Post-it notes around. But yes, keep a separate to-do list.
when it comes to interacting with your database, there's a really great to-do list. It's called Command. And if you're in there and you have your database set up and you're supposed to be sending text or emails or a newsletter out or whatever it is, or something specific, you can put it in there and it'll give you a day-by-day running list of the touch-based tasks that you can be operating.
That's exactly right.
But yeah, I do the same thing. So if everything that I have to do on my must-do list gets done, that's a good day. If there's something I miss on my to-do list, that's okay.
Yeah. One of my best friends is a realtor for one of the top teams in Atlanta as well. And she would always look at her day as, I just have to get an appointment. I'm going to get through these calls until I get an appointment. And once I get an appointment, if I want to quit for the day, I'm good. Like that's what she would call winning the day, as long as she booked an appointment. So go ahead.
I was going to say, and that correlates to when you, in your create column here, when it says put activities, not results, right?
Yep.
The activities will lead to the results.
Yeah. And that's something that's really interesting, because that's actually one thing I've struggled with on the 411, or how to create the 411. Where I put results, and this is me, I like to see the result for the yearly goal.
Right. I agree.
So I know that on average, I need to have between 80 and 100 conversations a week around real estate to hit the goal that I want to hit. And so for some reason, if I was to multiply that by 52, and however many is that, 5,200 conversations around real estate a year. I like seeing the volume goal. That's just how I work. And to me, that's also, that's a personal thing. So you guys, I think where it comes to the yearly goal, you can break it down however you'd like, but you're right about the activities. You've got to put the activities as part of your 411, not the actual result.
And in order to determine how many of, how much of an activity you need to accomplish on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, you really have to know your conversion rates and your efficiency, right? So and this isn't just cold calling either, and that's one thing that I think I will really want to touch on, and I'll probably touch on that throughout. It's not just cold calling, it's Facebook posts, it's Instagram, it's, however you generate your leads, right? And
Yeah.
one of the big things that has changed, even since like I've been with KW, is, and I'm sure it's changed a lot since you've been with KW, they used to really, really, really focus, and they still do, on cold calls. But now, even in bold and things like that, they're changing touches from just a cold call to a text or, to a direct message, things like that.
Yes. And
Some
I'm
love it,
so
some
happy.
people, but I love it because I think cold calling is becoming kind of like a dinosaur, and I think that the people that are really effective still, they have that in their day-to-day plan, but they're also doing videos, they're also doing social media content, they're also doing, texting and emails, things like that. So, um, but if you know that you have to, on average, text 25 people to get one of them to respond, and your goal is to get one appointment a day, then what you should put from a goal on activities is 25 texts or 25 calls or 25
That's
Facebook,
right.
whatever that number is, um, because that's what's going to get you the result. And if you go, I think the reason that they stress that so hard, and that I push for that when I create my own, is if you go a day and you do all the activity and you don't get an appointment, you did the activity, so it's still a good day, right? There's going to be days where you don't get an appointment,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
there's going to be days where you get 10 appointments, right? So always focus on the activity, and the results will definitely follow.
And I think that's probably one of the hardest things about our business and wrapping our brain around that. Obviously, this all deals, it starts with mindset. Um, it's about being consistent in what you're doing daily, right? And there's a great episode of either Think Like a CEO, or I think it's in Think Like a CEO in the first season, where Gary talks about the succession, like he's succeeding so slowly, it feels like you're failing, and you're really not, and so as long as you're suiting up and showing up and doing the actionable activities on your 411, just know that you are winning the day,
For
you know
sure. That's the easiest. That's the focusing on the activity is, even more so than the result, is the easiest way not to get burnt out in any industry. It doesn't. I've sold for a number of different industries, and it's the same exact mindset. Focus on just completing what you need to complete. Your efficiency will increase, your conversion rates will increase, your income will increase. But if you focus on, I need to do $1 million in production this month, and you do 700,000, that keeps happening over and over and over again, you will start to feel somewhat defeated or burn out. Um, so just keep that in mind. Activity is first.
Yep. And again, putting those on your 411 for both professional and personal, and keeping them to like a handful of things, especially for your monthly and for your weekly goals. I typically keep my monthly goals to about 3 activities, and then my weekly goals about 3 or 4. Because again, if you think about it, there are really only less than a handful of things that push our business forward. So keep it simple also.
And when you say you only put 3 or 4, because I do the same type of thing, it's because you're not putting the 80%.
That's right.
Right. So
Yeah,
all that other stuff is still things you have to do. But if you can get those 3 or 4 things done every single week, then you're going to be in good shape. And honestly, if you follow the KW model, you get to a point where you are doing enough volume, making enough money to where you can leverage out that 80% and only focus on 20%. That's the first step of the model, right? So um, we're gonna do a 4-on-1.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting out of this. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Why don't you
So
lead us through that?
let's 411. It's like a cha-cha. Let's
Yeah.
411. These are really good questions to ask yourself. What are your priorities for the year? What are your priorities for the month that will keep you on track and support your yearly goals? And what can you accomplish this week to be on track for the month? That's how you break down the thinking into yearly, monthly, and weekly. Anybody want to volunteer and we can work through how we would break down your goal?
The key is knowing the goal.
Well, yeah.
So who I'll call on people too. I'm happy with doing that.
Uh-oh. Gavin, I think. Hold on.
See, I don't know
Get
if I can view
everything in command in May. Okay. Well, so I would ask for you to be a little bit more specific on your goal. What does get everything in command? Does that mean get your database in command? Or does that mean to make sure that you have 100% health score for your database? And feel free to jump in and talk, Gavin. So clients and all important information. Okay, so to me, you're looking, okay, all right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds like you want to get your entire database into command and make sure that you have phone number, email, address, snapshot for the neighborhood, birthday, maybe spouse, or anything else that's pertinent. Is that right? Okay, yes. Okay, so 100% database command compliant, I guess is what we could call that, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
100% health score in command.
Yeah. Communicating through Zoom is fun.
Yeah. We're learning all sorts of things.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, and we want to accomplish that in the month of May. So my first question would be, how big is your database? Holy shit, okay. 2,000 people.
So you have some work ahead of you.
Yeah.
How many do you have in there now? What you got in there? If I click the chat, it's gonna.
They're organized in a CSV file.
Okay, that's easy.
Okay. So I kind of see that as like, this is going to help. What 411s do is they help you eat the elephant, because we know we can't eat the elephant. If you tried to put 2,000 people into command today, you would just give up and cry. I would, at least. So we're going to break this down into small chunks that we can eat on a daily basis, right? My question for Gavin is also, do we need to clean this database out, or are all these people viable people that you want to keep communicating with? And since this is a monthly activity, Gavin wants to accomplish this in the month of May, we would be breaking this down into a weekly activity, and also, really time blocking. Okay, using conversion as my CRM. Okay. Is there a possibility of using PySync to meld those?
There's an easier model. So
Okay.
if you, so our brokerage has Scott Leroy Marketing as a partner, right? So they're a vendor partner of ours. If you send him the CSV file that you pull or export from your current CRM, it'll take a couple days or so, but they'll put all of your contacts in. The only challenge with the Scott Leroy with any export into command is they're not always going to include like notes and things like that. It's primary information that any CRM has in it. That's what any CRM will actually be able to export.
And I think this is a great time to kind of talk about what is the highest and best use of your time. Data entry, I don't think is the highest and best use of my time. Do I have to do it every once in a while to maintain my CRM and my command? Yes. However, if you can use an avenue like Scott Leroy to sync your command with your database, that's probably the highest and best use of your time and your resources, even if it includes some monetary compensation to Scott Leroy.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Nope.
It's
We
free.
Market Center pays for them.
Mind blown. Do it. Like, do it today.
Yep. So
Don't
we
waste time on doing this, because if we go back to the 5 things that Gary says are part of our job description, this really isn't one of them. Now, what you can do as an action item on a 411, once it's set up into command and you go through and you start cleaning out command, because that has to be done as part of maintenance of your database, and you're making conversations or you're making phone calls and you're communicating with your database, then that would be an action item. Does that make sense, Gavin?
And for that, while we're on the topic, another helpful thing with the database. So I've been working with a few agents. I know I saw Yana on the call at some point. I don't know if she's still on, but I've been working with a few agents, and one thing that you can do if you don't have necessarily the time that to go through everyone is you can create questionnaire landing pages basically and send out email blasts or newsletter blasts. You'll see what emails get kicked back, so you know you have a bad email. But B, if you utilize the landing pages, which are super, super, super easy to make with a questionnaire, it just has like first name, last name, a note section, and email address and phone number. When they fill that out, it'll populate that information as a new contact, or if it's a existing contact, it should populate that information and either remove the duplicate, because command doesn't like duplicate contacts, or it'll fill in what's necessary for them. It'll register that they're in there and fill in whatever information necessary. What's really good about that is you're going to be getting real information, and you're also going to know that they're at least engaged in reading your material. So you can so it sounds like we have a really good plan for Gavin for the month of May. Scott Leroy to get the contacts in, landing pages with questionnaires on them. You can also include listings or information about yourself or search functionality on that landing page. I'm happy to help you make it. They're super easy.
And I think that's one of those things, like cleaning up your command is one of those to-do things that's part of your to-do list. And while it's important and it supports everything that you do, and it supports your endeavors to hit your goals for the year, it's not your must do. And I'm glad you brought up that example, because I think it helps us to differentiate what a to-do is from a must-do.
Now, you can utilize that tool as your must-do once you get it set up in there, because your must-do could be put 50 people on a smart plan today.
Yes.
Or text 50 people today, or whatever that looks like, or make 25 phone calls today. You can set all those tasks up. Those are must-dos. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to have the database in there first. You want to move to the next slide?
Sure.
See what we got going on here. That was a good example, Gavin. Thank you.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I think this is a really important question. So like I'll give you an example of a goal that from my 411 for the year is add 120 people to my Philly database. I moved here last August. Didn't know but like 2 people in Philadelphia. So one of my goals for the year was to add 120 people to my Philly database. And breaking that down is a 40 person per month database add, and then 10 people a week. So around those activities, I could have, in order to meet people, I would create activities on a weekly basis for myself to meet more people so that I could add these people to my database. That's kind of how I broke down that goal. And then when you have your goals set up, the best way to prioritize them is by asking yourself, if I could only do one thing, what would it be? And so when I look at, like if I'm looking at my weekly goal right now, which is 100 real estate conversations, add 10 people to my Philly sphere, and clean up my command and start a campaign. That's my weekly goal. If I could only do one thing, which one should I do out of those 4 things?
I mean, in my personal opinion,
Yes.
it should be the activity, right? So if the first activity is 100 real estate conversations, you said earlier on your goal is 100 a week, so 5,200 a year. So those conversations are what's gonna net you the sphere. It's gonna net you the people to put into command and develop smart plans for. So if you're when you ever have a lot of different, 3 or 4 different things you need to accomplish, the first one has to be what's gonna lead to everything else.
That's right.
And it's the conversations that are gonna lead to everything else. I have an idea. So why don't let's run through these, and then can you share your screen with your 4-in-1 up, and you can kind of walk through, or with the
Yeah,
sample?
let me grab my phone because I left it in the kitchen and take a picture of it because mine's hard copy, not up.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
So the next thing that is really important once you figure out what's number 1, what's number 2, what's number 3, is to really interrogate your priorities. Is it a 20% item or is it an 80% item? And again, when you're thinking about is it or is it not 20% item, my thought process is it going to result, is doing this thing going to result in achieving or getting closer to achieving the annual goal? And if your annual goal is a monetary number, is doing this one thing right now going to push my ability to hit that monetary number that I wanted to hit at the beginning of the year? Right. So if you're thinking about it, that's the best way to break it down. Kind of quotes to the second thing there. So the only way to know that you've earned the right to say that a priority is done or accomplished, honestly, it's kind of, you need to hold yourself accountable, or rely on an accountability partner. But if you've done what you've set out to do, if your goal is 2 appointments today and you knew you had to call 50 people to get that because it was one per every 25 people you get in touch with, and you got your 2 appointments, great. If you feel accomplished, then move on. If you've called 50 people and you haven't, you've still accomplished your activity goal. So if you still feel good about it, you can move along. Yeah, I'll go to the next one. I also can't read the chat function. So remember, the purpose of the 4-in-1 is to give you clarity on your priorities. In order to, we'll go time blocking. So maybe now's a good time to show your 4-1. But in order to, while Val is pulling that up, in order to be able to do the 4-1, and we go back to here, you have to know what your priorities are. So before you can do any of this, like we said at the very beginning, you have to know what your goals are going to be, because you can't work backwards any other way.
Here, I'm texting it to you because it's not coming up in my pictures yet. So I'm just sending it to you and you can keep sharing your screen.
Okay, let's talk time blocking. Now that we've talked 4-1,
Yeah.
and then we'll show
So
yours again.
time blocking is probably one of my favorite things to talk about. I learned to do this actually probably 16 years ago. We had a coach on a different team that I was on, and they taught how to do time blocking by creating what you think a perfect day looks like, and that perfect day would turn into what a perfect week looks like. I do actually have a slide on here, Brandon, about what a perfect week schedule looks
Yep.
like. And one of the things that
So this is
I
your slide.
color code mine because I'm visual. I know that anything that is in dark green is a dollar productive activity. And so that is the color of money. And that's what that coach taught me to do. So it stuck with me all these years. Anything that's in pink is my my personal time. I have a daily, well, we'll just go through it. So my thinking time is kind of my morning routine meditation, kind of easing into a shower kind of hourly time. And that could mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I have a morning routine that I like to start with gratitude, and I like to start with something positive. Usually includes really music that I find inspiring and positive. And I don't check emails probably until at least 10 or 10:30. And the thing about checking emails in the morning is that it can be super disruptive. And so when you're time blocking, you really want to take a look at a couple of different things. You want to know yourself and know your energy levels, and know what your day, kind of take your temperature throughout the day and see like when your highest energy, right? So I also know that for me, if I don't do my time block, or if I don't time block for calls in the morning, it's kind of like not going to happen that day. And so they talk a lot about eating the frog first. So this is a perfect schedule, a perfect week of mine from last year. But mine doesn't look very different right now. If I were to show it to you, it's just a couple more zooms.
Yeah, many more Zooms.
Yeah. So at the time, our team had gone from a daily huddle to only twice a week. And so I would still have my kind of quiet thinking time in the morning. And then between 8 and 9:30, I was on my way to the office. I like seeing some blank space in my week, because then I can fill that in with appointments or with calls. I have a lot of clients who would like to take calls first thing in the morning. So I would give that myself time until about 9:30 to do that. And then from 9:30 to 10:30, it was call time. This particular week, we were having a team event in the following week. So this particular week my calls were about calling around that team event. So when I say call PCSOI, for me, that is past clients and sphere of influence. And that's probably what constitutes, I would say, 60% of my calls are to my PCSOI, if not more than 60%, because that's where the majority of my business comes from.
Yeah, and they're also a lot nicer people typically for the most part, right? So if you're going to do calls, cold calls, you really should consider calling as many sphere of influence people as humanly possible, because you're going to get more wins out of it. If you get more wins out of it, you're going to feel better about doing it, and then you're going to want to do it more, right?
That's right.
Um, and then since I went down one slide to get to this, because I think this is more important, we have a couple minutes left. So um, what is the order in which you filled this up? Because this is super important. I
Oh,
talk
that's a
about
great
this all the
question.
time.
My personal time goes on first.
100% of the time.
My personal time, and I use an old school notebook calendar also for my calendar. I mean, I use a digital one, but I use this one because at the very beginning it has the months of the year, and the first thing that goes on my calendar are my vacations. The absolutely first thing that I put on my calendar is my vacation, and usually we take a few trips a year, whether it's just to visit family or for a wedding, and then like 2 major trips for vacation. I'd always take one the beginning of July, and then I like to spend the holidays at Christmas time usually away. So that's what would go on first. And then when I'm planning out my week, I would put my my workouts and my family time first. And I've gotten to a point in my career where I like my Sundays at home, because I spent the first 15 years of my career giving my Sundays to my clients. And now I want my Sundays back. So that's why Sunday's completely blocked out for family time. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't work on a Sunday. However, this is a perfect week I'm working off of, right? And then one of the other things that I've always done is I don't do any appointments on Fridays, because Friday is my prep time. And so the way that I always worked, especially when I was at my highest years of as a buyer agent, my highest years of production, Friday was my time to work on the business and to set up my appointments and to make my courtesy calls, because in the springtime and in the summertime, it was not unusual for me to have 4 to 5 appointments on a Saturday.
Let's go down to some tips.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's the reason I brought that up is it's so important to do that, because if you don't do it, you won't go on vacation. You won't do yoga. You won't do whatever those personal time things are. You will find a way, if you don't have them blocked off first, to fill that with business.
Yeah.
And that is the quickest way to lead to burning out.
Well, and it also, it's about what your one thing is. And for me, my one thing is travel. It's what I live for. It's what I love to do. So that is why it goes first on my calendar.
Yeah. So there's a couple really good points on here, and we'll send this out to everyone that was on here. So I have to figure out how everyone who's on here, but we'll send this out to everybody just so you guys have this. But the biggest thing on here, I think, is making sure you're not allotting too much time for a task, right? So you should know like exactly how long things are going to take you. If you put an hour for something that's going to take, typically 30 minutes to do, it's going to fill an hour. If you know that your appointments are typically quick for buyers and they're 30 minutes, and you block off an hour, you're going to spend an hour with those buyers, because you're going to have a conversation, you're going to do whatever, you're going to answer more questions. The next best thing when it comes to time blocking is building a bunker. Like, it's really difficult right now at home to do this, especially if you have kids, you have family around, you have your pets around. They're all distractions. The best way to build that bunker is to make sure everybody is on the same page as you, in the fact that when you accomplish your goals, it's accomplishing the family's goals, right? It's accomplishing everybody around you's goals. And that all starts with you having those conversations and making sure that your goals really are real, not just a random dollar amount, not just a random production level, but what do those dollars actually do from an impact perspective to your family, to your life? You want to go on vacation, then go on vacation. I know that if Valerie's partner came in and tried to interrupt her time blocking time, she knows that's maybe one less trip they can take,
That's
or one
right.
less day in Aruba they can go to, right? So because you guys are on one page, like you need to be on the same page as everybody around you in your immediate sphere, because that's what's going to help you create the bunker and protect your time. And again, the order we went in here is really, really important, right? 4 and 1 first, and then time block. Because if you try and do the other way around, you're not going to be able to do it because you don't know what to put in your time blocking schedule. One thing that I do while you were talking about the perfect week, I actually put in my calendar, I put when I'm supposed to be having appointments. Like typically I try to allot specific times for that. And if I have to replace that with something or I don't have something booked, that's like a mental game I play with myself. Like I have to
Yeah.
erase that. I
Yeah.
love I also at my office have a physical version of my 4-in-1 I do every week. And if I have to like cross something out or erase an appointment, I know I just erased money.
Yeah.
So I try and do whatever I possibly can to not have to do that.
And I think there's a bold law around that. If you something about you have to replace it somewhere else. Like if you're moving it, you've got to replace it somewhere else.
Right. And if you're busy, which many of us are all the time, you don't necessarily always have somewhere else to replace it. Right. So if you have to replace it, what else are you going to be replacing? Typically, what happens is the first thing people replace is personal time. So if you have that, it goes back to blocking that in first. If you have that set in stone, you won't need to replace it. Um, I want to respect everybody's time. Does anybody have questions, ahas? I want to hear from like a couple people. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. That way I can see everybody. There he is, Mike Rosania. But yeah, what are some ahas that we have?
Or challenges that you're
Yeah,
having.
challenges, questions. I'm going to call on Mike if he doesn't answer. He's so dark. Deidre, I can see you too. Any ahas from this? I know we've talked about this stuff, like just you and I. Like anything you picked up from this conversation, or any questions you have?
Sure. I think I certainly picked up things from the conversation. I like the 5 things that Valerie pointed out earlier: lead generate, lead follow up, appointment, negotiate contracts, and role play. And I think that if you're not doing all of those things, then you're not making your business happen. And I mean, we are in the lead generation business, and that's your most important thing that you can do every single day. So is that really an aha? No, it's something that we all know, and we all need to do it. And I have to say that one of the things I like the most is calling my database, and during this time I've really enjoyed that. So and to me, I can be walking outside for a walk. It was Easter Sunday, and I said, you know what? It's a nice day. I'm going to go, who can I call that's home alone right now, that can't see their kids and that's going to be happy to hear from me. And you know what? It's not because I'm not asking for business, right? But it's all just about making those connections to me. And business kind of always follows. I don't have to ask for the business. I think when you're in touch with your people and come from a point of caring and concern, business happens.
We have, and Gary will say this every time he's on a mastermind of any kind, we have an opportunity right now during all of this to build mind share with our sphere of influence and with our people in a way that we may have never had before, including like 2008, right? So take advantage
Especially
of it,
2008. Yeah.
right? Because in 2008 it
We were
was
sad. It's
everyone was sad. It was scary. I was a this might hurt some people in here. I was a junior in high school, and Mike,
Same,
it was
Mike, same.
but you talk to people who've been in the business for a long time, and they all say like they doubled down, tripled down on what they were doing, what their activities were, and many of them who stayed in the business, I mean, they exploded. Keller Williams exploded coming out of 2008. We were KW in general in a national level was like 3 or 4 nationally ranked pretty much every year. Going into 2008, we came out to 2008 2 or 3, and then just worked our way up to 1. Right, being number 1 in the country now came from that recession. So use this as an opportunity to really dive in with your people, and if that's something you haven't done yet, then I think you missed the mark a little bit on that. I think it's a huge time for like social media. Facebook's up insanely in their traffic. Utilize it. Utilize that Facebook match that the market center is going to do. We sent an email out yesterday,
That's
I think,
awesome.
about it. Right. So, in case you didn't see it, the market center, you spend $25 in ads, and right now the national average in Facebook ads is for if you use it through command is just over $2 per lead. That's not click, that's not view, that's an actual lead. Someone gave you their information. And the leads are comparable to what you would get from a Zillow or any other online type of deal. So, yeah, I think take advantage of that. That's something the market center wants to help pay for. So, there's videos in that email as well, and we'll text you, Deidre. I'll make sure you get everything you need. There's videos in that email as well. Yeah, so Mike is at a little over $1 a lead, right? So if you just took advantage of the KW Philadelphia offer and you spend 25 and we match it on your next invoice, so we'll give you 25 back on your next invoice, you just got 24 leads, potentially 24 lead opportunities. Convert one of them. Get one pre-qualified buyer, get one person who wants to list their house, and that's a huge ROI. If you are a first-time user on the Facebook ads and you do that through command, if you spend $75, KWRI will give you a $25 credit, and we'll still give you the same $25 credit because we're going to match up to 25. So think about that. You go on command, spend $75 in Facebook ads. Let's say you're as good as Mike and you can get them for $1 a lead. You have the opportunity to get, Corey, that's badass. $85, 60 leads. Come on.
Yeah.
If you want, Corey, if you want to share with me the ad you used, if you're comfortable doing that, I'm happy to share some of those tips with other people too.
Yeah, Brandon, absolutely.
Yeah, because those are great results. It's honest, and I agree, dude. It's a no-brainer. If you're not doing that, if you're not taking advantage of at least the market center one, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Cool. Any other questions or anything? I don't want to hold people up too long.
Yeah, have anything about what we talked about? Questions, challenges?
Was this helpful? No? Great. Just kidding. Cool.
Lily said yes.
Yeah. It's like a couple other people said that it was helpful in the chat. So that's good. That's a win.
And the thing about it is that it's challenging. Like, it's not perfection every week, and that's something that we all struggle with. I fall off the wagon all the time, and I think what's nice is that you just use the tool to get back on the wagon again, and then you can really kind of focus on what your priority is and do that.
Yeah. And, kind of last fleeting thoughts. You have the one difference between this brokerage and every other company on the planet. You have over 425, 430 people here who want to help you achieve your goals. So if you're one of those people who, you're a solo agent, maybe no one in your friends or families in this type of realm, in the sales realm, and you want an accountability partner to help you stick to your 411, you have over 400 options. I'm happy to help. Ask, Valerie's happy to help. We talk to each other a lot about just like brainstorming and ideas. And Mike, I mean, I talk to you every single day pretty much about this type of stuff. So like, happy to help. And many, 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 many other people are.
And the thing about it too is that use our knowledge in the sense that I've been there, I have done that, I have screwed up. I've been an agent through 9/11, through 2008, now through this. Like, I've seen a lot of different things, and a lot of what is on my perfect week and a lot of what's on my 411, that's because I've had to learn it the hard way, So lean into that.
Yeah, and then good question, Mike. That was the last thing I was going to say. Bold Pivot starts at 2:00 our time.
Yep.
Onto the Bold Pivot Facebook page, you have to have signed up and registered to get into. Guys, that is again a no-brainer. That's so easy. It's $100. We will, like the brokerage, is refunding you or reimbursing you the $100 once it's complete. You just submit your invoice and we'll reimburse it. Like, it's free to take Bold, which is never the case ever, really. And it's such a perfect time for it. And I saw the lineup that they posted in the Bold group yesterday, and like I was texting Mike about it last night. Like, there are some. Usually, when you do Bold, if you haven't done it yet, you don't get to like pick the coach and stuff like that. Like, it's just like a guy or a girl, and you deal with it, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. Most of them are really good. But you get a few that are just okay. This lineup, if this isn't the top 10 Bold coaches in the country,
yeah,
like, I'd be shocked. Like, Cody Gibson's going to be on there. I'm all about it.
Yeah. No, they're amazing rock stars.
About Pat Mancuso.
And your boy Pat.
Yeah, Pat's in there.
But yeah, so again, take advantage of what you can take advantage of. There are things out there to help you build your business, and the only thing that this company cares about is helping you build your business. Take advantage of it. If you have any questions on Bold or on the Facebook ads or on this or anything, myself, Valerie, I'm sure Mike would be happy to answer anything you got. I hope everybody found this useful, helpful, a good use of your time. And I'm sorry we went over a couple minutes, but I feel like we were having a good conversation. We'll get the recording out at some point. But until then, I'll talk to you guys soon.